everyone. This is Kandace and Sher with Processing Trauma Out Loud. Back for week 3 with our friend and mentor, Laurie Proctor. Please go back and listen to the first 2 episodes in this series on a discussion that we're having about internal family systems. We're interviewing Laurie. It is one of her favorite, I think she said her favorite modality, although she integrates many modalities when she's working with her clients. But today we're going to move into our final discussion where we're going to be looking at what does it mean, Laurie, to experience integration of those burden parts that you've been talking about in episode 1 and 2.
Thank you. Yeah, so where I think I want to begin, it's like kind of where we left off. And Sher, you were saying something that was really brilliant. And I just want to like highlight it again because you were talking about like welcoming your parts. Oh, hi, there you are. And what I want to name that, well, the kindness, of course, that's part of self-energy, of giving that compassion. But even before that, the word that is so important is awareness. Like you even putting your hands on your chest and saying, oh, hello there. Like that's you becoming aware that a part of you is present and has taken kind of over. You're processing, you're thinking, you're behaving, you're feeling, right? Because that's what a part does. They are fully a part of us that has all these qualities. And so you saying, oh, there you are, or even slowing down, like Kandace, you mentioned something in the last one about your body, about somatics, like going from your thinking parts back down into your body, intelligence, right? That is what awareness does. It helps us to return to what I call self-energy, or this consciousness that we all have. We may not all be familiar with it because our parts have been so traumatized and they kind of take over the system. So it's kind of like self-energy gets covered up, but it's our natural state. It's where we feel safe and connected and socially engaged. It's where we get to rest and even digest. It's just our natural state of being. And it's what heals all these other parts of us. But we need awareness first and saying, oh, hi, there you are. Or saying, oh, wow, my chest is beating out, like outside of itself, like, and noticing that sensation. That's bringing awareness, and that awareness is your self-energy. Because as long as it comes without judgment, like if you're aware of something and then there's judgment, well, that's just another part. But when we could have a stance of non-judgment, a stance of compassion and curiosity, kindness, calm. So there's in IFS, there's these 8 C's of self, and I kind of named some of them. Do you want me to name them all? Okay. So I named some of them: calm, curious, compassionate, connected. So connected to our own experience, our own body, as well as then connected to others. Like, do I feel safe in connection to myself and others? Then there's confidence. Like sometimes our parts can have confidence. A part of us can have confidence, but this is like a quiet, just knowing, like, I'm confident. It's not like a blustery, like arrogance. It's just a knowing and this confidence of knowing. And then courage is a C word of because a lot of times our parts will not be courageous, or they might be overly courageous, but in a way that could bring harm because they're doing things that could bring harm in their over courageousness. But in self-energy, the courage is, hey, if I go down to this really painful part, it's going to be okay. That type of courage, right? Because a lot of times we have parts that are like, I can't go there. If I go to that exile's pain, I'm never going to get out of it. But courage in ourself is like, oh no, it's just part of the journey. We're going to go and be with that part, unburden it, and then you'll be free. It's that type of courage that trusts in the process. And then creative, our self-energy, like we are created to create. We are creative beings. So anytime we're in a creative flow, painting, drawing, writing, those are creative outlets. That's self-energy. And then the final one is just clarity, like being clear-minded, like not in like what you were talking about, Kandace, being in the past with regret or shame, or being in the future with anxiety and stress, being in the present moment with just clarity, like I am well, all is well in this moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just talking to my daughter, I think it was last night, and we can have these conversations around story work and IFS, and so I was telling her something that I've been putting into practice quite a bit is I often have this part that will show up. It's very random, and it can still blindside me a little bit, but it's this part that feels, I want to say shame, but it's really wrapped in you're doing something wrong. Okay. So being able to notice that part, in the past, it was like I didn't even question it. Oh yeah, I'm doing something wrong somehow in some way. And now I'm able to say, in this present moment, do I have any real guilt? Do I feel convicted, if you will? Or is this a part? And I mean, it's really been helpful not to then sink into the shame of what I don't even know what I've done wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that part of you was conditioned to take the blame. Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
And
Yeah. That.
also,
Yeah.
yeah, and I want to say also that our parts are usually young. They're not always, but they're usually like pre 16 years old, let's just say. So for me, I would say even younger. Most of my parts that show up are pretty young. And so they come in to do their protecting, but from the perspective of how an 8-year-old would do it, or a 5-year-old would do it. So they get wound up over things like you're saying, Kandace. You felt that pressure coming of something, you did something wrong, but then when you paused and you brought awareness, you could recognize, oh no, I'm not doing something wrong, but my protector part, something got triggered. And you were able to bring calm to that part then. But you stayed in your adult self from your adult perspective and helped that part be free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think this might, if Lori, if you're okay with it, I, what does integration look like for that part?
So that's hard to say because like there could be a million versions of what integration looks like. But for me, if I was working with you in that part, particularly, like for one, the more trust and safety that that part has with you, with your self energy, and then with the therapist's self energy or the practitioner's self energy. But it really is yours because when you're not with the practitioner, then your self energy has to be enough. But it's, to me, integration happens when that part feels so safe and secure with your love and self energy that it lets you go to what it's protecting.
Okay.
And it's almost always protecting shame, the
Yeah.
burden of shame, the exiles. And so when the exile gets unburdened, when that protector relaxes enough, trusts you enough to step aside, to say, okay, I'm not at fault. I'm going to step back. I'm going to take whatever I'm feeling and allow you to do this and go to that one. And then when that one unburdens, that protector now doesn't have to protect in that way by taking the blame. That one in you gets to take on a new role. So I want to even ask, and I could ask that part of you right now, well, what would she rather do than thinking she's always at fault? What would she want to do with her free time if she didn't have to always take the blame?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what she said is to keep writing.
Oh, so do you hear the creativity?
Mm-hmm.
That's self. She wants to write. She wants to create. She wants to speak.
Mm-hmm.
She
Yeah.
wants to share with the collective. That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
because yeah, and I will just say, I have worked with that part, but I don't know. I want to just say this for our listeners. I started having that feeling by the time I was 5. Like it's a very young feeling because I was harmed at a very young age, and so it's kind of like what Cher said, these parts can be different ages.
Mhm.
But yeah, um, sometimes we've lived with these parts for decades and we did not know what was happening.
That's
Yeah.
right. And they do grow with us. They don't necessarily grow up because they're using the same strategy, but they get very good at their strategies, right? But and I don't know where this comes from, but probably some scientific study, but between 0 and 7 is when most of our conditioning happens. Like those 7 years, and we don't even have memory of half of them. 4 years is really where 3 or 4 is where memory starts coming on. So a lot of times we don't even know the trauma where these parts of us have come from because we don't have memory of it. So we even have pre-verbal trauma that we'll feel in our body, but we won't actually have memory of the story. So we have to, like, it gets into more complexity sometimes. Um, that's where we have to just listen to the body and know that it's not lying. That's why, like,
Yeah.
all our parts tell the truth.
Yes. And I also want to bring in story work right here because, and also I want to ask you, and I think I'm making a point. I want to make the point that we need help when we are doing this work. We're talking a little bit about how I have awareness of my part and I can tune in, but this is after 4 years, well, more than 4. I've probably been doing IFS for about 8 years. I can do that now, but at first I couldn't. We need other eyes on our stories. We can't interpret our own stories. Our brain, the way that our brain works, it is literal. I don't know. I think I'm going to say the word impossible. So doing this work of getting integrated, I was going to say freedom because in the integration there's freedom. We're not getting free from the part, but we're getting free from the ways that our protectors or our exiles are causing distress in our lives. But as we are seen by somebody else and we get good care around our stories of trauma, that's when then our protectors come to, or our parts, our exiles or protectors come to this place where they can begin to trust somebody else to see them and know them and be named and then be cared for and become unburdened, right? Like, I just wanted to really make the point because we're talking a lot about how we're doing this work for ourselves now, but I just really want to say when you're starting, we really need help doing this work.
Yeah, and that is so true. And I'm glad you brought that up because it's not that we don't have enough self energy. We all have enough self energy. It's just not believed and trusted by the system because trauma has made our parts be the one that are living and managing and protecting. And so that self energy, it almost the self energy of another, of a group or of a practitioner helps to find our own. Like it's self energy begets self energy. So I even know when I've been in my trainings, I leave there with like a wave of just good feeling because everyone's self energy lifts you up. It's really stunning. It's an energy. Self energy is a higher frequency than where our parts live. Our parts live in trauma. They live in grief. They live in pain. They live in survival. Where self energy is like, oh no, we're perfectly safe and resourceful and whole. Like that's the energy and the message of self energy. and we do need to borrow other people's. And particularly with story, Sherry, you bring up such a good point, because we could own, like that story of me dancing in front of my father, like I knew that was a big story. But my parts interpreted like, well, I was, like, what am I doing dancing in front of my father? Like, what is my problem? Like, right? I could only see it through my perspective, my lens, my parts. So when I had other people's self-energy say, oh, you were amazing. You were embodied. Like you were this little girl that had a body that wanted to move and be seen. Like how beautiful. And I was like, really? Like it was this new perspective that then myself could be like, wait, you're right. I was just a little girl. And
Yeah.
there was nothing wrong with me.
Mhm.
There was nothing wrong with me.
It can be well, it is life changing when we are shown a different story. And it makes me think of, and I'll just share on this for just a minute because I know I can take us on a bunny trail, but there's bottom up healing and then there's top down, right? And one is more talk therapy, the other is more about somatic and working with the body. And I really see the beauty of both, because sometimes you can, so that in those streams of thought, sometimes people can think, only do this or only do that. But what I realized so I'm learning I have tools for nervous regulation that I use, and I'm so thankful for that. But what nervous regulation tools alone can't do is to really bring in the non-judgment and the self-compassion. That's what story does. And I don't know if you have anything to say about that, or if there's an important aspect to that. I don't want to divorce the two.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I love that you even bring this up, because the somatics is very important, right? And yet without, like, remember, we go back to those thinking parts of ours. Our thinking parts do want to make sense of it. So the story work helps us make sense of what our body has done all these years, like why we go into fight, or why we shut down and go into a functional freeze, or why we find ourselves pleasing and appeasing people. Like those are our trauma responses, right? And so we can work with the body and find different regulation for that, but we're not helping those parts of us that have used those strategies over and over and over again. The story work helps us to rewrite and to bring in new narratives so that those parts of us don't keep doing what they've been doing. So it's the integration happens top down and bottom up at the same time, I think, with story work. It's like it's bringing them both together. So our understanding, our thinking parts can be like, oh, that makes sense. Of course. And it just, like, even as I say that, I almost feel like like a breath my system could take, because now it understands what happened to that little 12-year-old girl in that story.
Yeah.
Right? Or whatever. Like, so it does the top down, but it also helps our body to settle, because our parts don't have to keep doing what they've always done. Like they get new roles that are more conducive to integration, harmony, peace, love within the system. It actually changes and raises it's almost like the landscape of the inner family, like just becomes more healthy, more loving, more harmonic. Like that's what integration does from the story. Yeah.
Yeah. And what came up for me is like the idea that you can have joy living in your own body. Like just, peace, joy. That's what we all want, right? That's what we want to experience, and that's what we want to offer. And that's why we're doing this.
That's right. That's exactly right. To feel more of that joy, more of that safety and peace within our bodies. It's beautiful. That's what healing does do. And then we want to offer it to everyone. It's like that ripple effect. Like that's what I do think as we heal. And maybe this is, I'm like, even I have a part going, that's going to sound kind of Pollyanna, but like as we heal and we find that freedom within our own body, our own landscape, it does ripple out and heal the world. Like it just does. I mean, you guys are living proof of it. Like you've had healing and now you're processing out loud, offering healing to many. It's stunning.
Thank you. Well, you went before us, and Cher and I met because we showed up in one of your story groups. And who would have known, 5 years ago that we would be, speaking on a podcast together. And so, Laurie, just thank you so much. I want to thank you again as we're wrapping up this 3-part series, and just, yeah, share how do you want to wrap us up? I feel like these episodes are just so rich.
Yeah, I think as you've been talking, Laurie, and you pretty much said what I was kind of forming as a kind of a bringing it to conclusion, but the things we long for most are beautiful relationships with others and beautiful relationship with ourselves. When we feel love in our own body, soul, and spirit, when we feel that we are loved and that we have people around us who are loving us and we are loving them, and we have joy and peace. And this is what this work brings. Like it's what every human longs for, and we don't get it perfectly, but we're tasting it more and more. The more integration we have, the more self energy we have, the more we are experiencing like fullness of life and the 8 C's or the 7 C's of IFS that are just beautiful. So yeah, really good. Laurie, any closing thoughts before we wrap it up here?
Well, I think like if I could give your listeners anything, it's like to take, for some reason, curiosity, the C of curiosity comes up because for me, a lot of times I'm like, am I in self? Am I in a part? And I think the curiosity without an agenda is really helpful for me. So I think I just want to leave your listeners with that. If you could truly find open-hearted curiosity towards yourself and your suffering, like that is a game changer alone.
Yeah.
And curiosity, like, oh, I want to know, like, tell me about that pain. It matters. Like a curiosity with love, with compassion. Like that has been a game changer for me. So anytime if I am feeling whatever I'm feeling, if I could just be like, oh, what's going on? Tell me more. Like that automatically brings you into self energy, that curiosity. So if you could have that for yourself or others without judgment, because our parts love to judge, right? They love to judge ourselves and they love to judge others. And curiosity takes us out of that judgment. It says, oh, I don't know. I don't actually know, but I want to know.
Yeah.
So I think that's just what I want to leave everyone with. And I could talk about this for days because it really has, it's changed me. Like I do feel that freedom and that joy. I mean, there's still times I don't. I still have my parts that come in and, yell and kick and scream a little bit, but I have felt that. And I know both of you have as well. And so I think I just want to give that hope to anyone out there that's hurting, that doesn't feel that,
Amen.
to tell them your story matters and to find a place to share it, that it can be safe to be read well.
Yeah. I think you just gave us the title for this 3-part series, Laurie. For something like, your story matters, and then tag it with the IFS. I love that. Your story matters.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you guys. I love you both so much.
So good to be with you, Laurie Proctor from sowthat.com, SOWTHAT.com. And thank you for your generous offering of time and wisdom to us and our listeners. And really, and obviously, just Kandace and I both love you so much. And
So
you
much.
have just helped us find so much goodness in our own lives. So thank you.
Thank you. It's been a joy.
Yeah. Love you all
Bye,
so
Laurie.
much.
Bye, Cher.
Yep.
Bye.